Previously on Coach Greg.
So rather than going over C-Bum's diet and the peak week diet and what they're eating up and going over their grocery haul, I'm going to be going over their drug haul and exposing exactly what these guys are doing. And what about some of the fun drugs? You know, the ones that Togi likes to take.
Red goddamn Doucette.
Let's talk about sniffing creatine. A lot of competitors sniff creatine. And those of you who are young, you're supposed to be reading behind the lines because I'm not talking about creatine. This gives people tremendous energy. You know it does. It's a stimulant. It also reduces your appetite, crushes your appetite, makes you not hungry. How do you think you feel the last month before a competition? You're starving. You'll do almost anything to get rid of that craving. Trust me, you are starving. Your body, it can't handle it. It's a very slippery slope. Oftentimes I've coached competitors, natural. I'll never do drugs. I'll never do anything. Halfway through the competition, they're hungry. What can I take to not be hungry? I'm saying, you know, these recipes, a protein ice cream. No. What drugs can I take? But you're 100% natural. If I take Anavar, if I take this, if I take that, will I not be hungry? No, you're going to be hungry. You're hungry no matter what. But you know, you're going to put on more muscle. Well, what can I take? What can I take? Well, there are fat burners, over-the-counter fat burners that can help. There's Clen and T3. Man, I want that. They change their mind in a heartbeat as soon as they're suffering. They'll start with the Clen and T3, and then it's, what about that DNP? I heard that's good. No. Then come to find out they're doing M. That stands for somebody that rhymes with poly. And they're taking that because, well, it gives them a lot of energy. They're not as hungry. And then they'll start doing that GH, and it rhymes with the B. I don't want to take the entirety of these things because I don't want this video to get demonetized. But they'll start taking that. Why? Because it helps you sleep, makes you feel good, gets your brain away from the suffering that you have to endure. Remember, people don't talk about just how hard the suffering is for bodybuilding. And when it's peak week, this is it. They've been dieting for 15 weeks. And when you see people crying, for example, emotional, and you're making fun of them, you realize just how hard it is to diet for a bodybuilding competition. The emotions are running wild. And so if you win the competition and you start crying after, I get it. It's an extremely emotional event. You've put yourself through something that you never knew you could complete. It's amazing that people have the capacity to put themselves through that much torture to win a trophy, to win $1 million or whatever. I'm telling you, even for $1 million, the suffering you have to do, 99.9% of people, they couldn't do it. Even if you had Derek Lunsford's or Chris Bumstead's genetics, 99.9% of you, you couldn't do it. And so, yeah, I get it. They're abusing hella drugs. Of course they are. But even with hella drugs, 99.9% of you with the same genetics would have no chance of doing what they're doing. Next, very popular, Adderall, Ritalin, any kind of ADD medication, any kind of stimulant, anything to reduce the appetite and give you energy. Remember, your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, it's in the toilet. You feel like dog shit all the time. You're sitting and you barely can turn your head, barely can stand up. It's not something that you could understand how you feel unless you've been there. I don't care if you just ran a marathon. You feel way better after running a marathon, doing a triathlon, riding your bike for 5 hours than you do when you haven't eaten effectively and your body fat's at 5% for months on end. I can't explain how hard that is. I'll give you an example. I needed help to get out of the bathtub. I got in car accidents because I couldn't shoulder check. I had to get friends to drive me to the gym to do cardio. I couldn't drive there. I couldn't trust myself behind the wheel. And that's how hard it is. And so imagine trying to do that while being 100% natural. I did 42 shows natural. And then I went enhanced. And so a lot of people, bodybuilders, they start out natural, they start using steroids. It's the gateway to recreational drugs. And so please be careful. You might start with Adderall, Ritalin. All of a sudden you're sniffing creatine. You're partying harder than last time. You're only sleeping 2 or 3 hours of the night. You're then abusing sleeping pills, of which I had to do because I couldn't sleep anymore. You're getting transomnia. You can't sleep. You're hyper. You're always on edge. And you have that brain fog of which Mike Israetel and even Chris Bumstead described.
It's this fog.
Essentially, you feel like you have mild or even major dementia. You can't remember anything.
Mild dementia. That's it.
Mild dementia, I'm thinking, I had a major. I couldn't think of what I was doing. I didn't know where my name was. You're in a mess, I like to say. It's horrible. And so if you start taking recreational drugs to get you to showtime, oftentimes that's just what you needed, and then you're addicted. And then following the show, you keep going. You told yourself, I won't keep going. I'll get off the steroids, I'll get off the drugs when it's over. The show's over, you gain 15 pounds in one day, and you're like, what the hell is this? You go back on the cleanse, you go back on the T3, you can't stop. You need the Adderall, you need to sniff creatine, you can't stop. You do your next show, the same thing, higher doses. A year or two later, you're a drug addict. You're a degenerate gambler. You're done. What do you do at this point? Happens to a lot of top level professional bodybuilders, and you wonder why they end up backing out of competitions, stopping to compete, and you just don't hear their names anymore. Or they get to the stage, but they don't look right. There's something off about them. We've even seen female bodybuilders, professionals, who get addicted to meth following competitions. They transition, or at least they look like they transition. I mean, they started as a female bodybuilder, and after that, they look like a man. I'm not trying to make fun of them, but that's how they look. They're on so many steroids and so many drugs, they look like they're meth addicts who've converted from being females to males. Remember, when you take steroids, you're slowly transitioning to that of a man. When your coach says to take this many drugs and that many drugs because you need an IFBB Pro card, you need to win, you need the best before and after, you have to be careful. What do they have to benefit, and what do you have to lose? Yeah, you might win a Pro card, but if you're slowly turning into a man, you now have a deep voice, you're now getting acne, you're balding, whatever problem's happening, you have to ask yourself, is this worth it? Yeah, it might be worth it now. You're 17, 20, 25, 30. Seen a bodybuilder 17 years of age, cheersing with her boyfriend who's 22, cheersing Tren and so on. I'll be doing a video on that shortly. And so taking steroids, it's a slippery slope. You need to be careful. And oftentimes people getting involved in bodybuilding, bikini and so on, have diagnosable personality disorders. People just don't realize it. But why do you think this is? Why do people competing in bikini, bodybuilding and so on have EDs? I'm not talking about the problem with the downstairs. Is it the competition that causes them to develop that? Or do they have that and they seek out the competition that actually rewards it? Think of it. Is it healthy for a female to be amenorrheic? That means they don't have their period. They're on performance-enhancing drugs. They're carrying unusually low levels of body fat. Unhealthy, if you will. Let's call it 10 or 12% body fat as a female. And we're rewarding them on how much muscle they have and how shredded they have and how many lines they have in their pecs. Does that seem a little bit off to you? And so if you're a female involved in the sport, you might start off thinking, I'm going to be feminine, I'm going to do this. A couple years later, you're into the trend now, and you look like a man. Be careful. Perhaps the gateway drug is you're taking pre-workout, fat burner, leads to ephedrine, then you're taking modafinil, then it's, do you have any Adderall, Ritalin? Then you start sniffing creatine. And so please be careful. I warn you again, please be careful. Next, it's now peak week. How many people have we seen die during peak week, the week of the show? And so we have guys dying during peak week. We had, for example, Mohammed Benaziz, I think his name was. Andreas Munzer, remember how shredded that guy was? We have the 212 guy, black guy, competed in 212, crazy back. He died just a couple years ago. George Peterson, he died. Peak week. Peak week is a time when you're trying to get shredded. You're trying to lose as much water as humanly possible to look shredded. And so what you have to take for most people is a diuretic. Now there are various forms of diuretics. Some are more dangerous than others. And one of the most dangerous that people still using to this day is known as Lasix. Now, Lasix comes in both oral and injectable. Injectable Lasix onset of action happens within minutes. You inject it, and in a few minutes you start peeing uncontrollably. And if you misdose it, take too much, you can pee so much, literally you can end up dying. Even in oral form, it's very dangerous. You pee and you pee and you pee and you don't stop. Now, there are safer forms, for example, hydrochlorothiazide with triamterene, oftentimes given to women and men who have high blood pressure for cardiac issues. I've taken those probably 30 different times in my life. Never had any serious problems. Other drugs, for example, Lasix, a lot more dangerous. I've taken those as well. Was at one powerlifting competition, wasn't quite in my weight class. I'd lost about 24 pounds or so in a day or two. Wasn't quite in the weight, didn't know how I was gonna do it. Took a dozen Lasix tablets. It's a lot. Left the powerlifting weigh-in with no shoes. Didn't know where I was. Walked out, left my shoes. Wasn't driving home, was barefoot. Got my shoes the next day. Don't know where you are. I weighed in at a bodybuilding competition, I believe it was in Germany, and I fell over. Barely able to make the weight class, but using severe amounts of diuretics to do so. It's part of the sport, getting shredded. And some of you are thinking, well, just don't use them. If your competition is using them and you don't, you're gonna be at a disadvantage. Well, get leaner, show up in shape. I would show up in shape every single time, and I was leaner than most people far earlier than the competition. And so no matter how lean you are, you can get a bit leaner. So some people say I didn't use any diuretics. They go for the fuller look. The fuller look oftentimes doesn't cut it, in particular in men's physique and men's classic physique, when you have to make a specific weight for your height. In open class, the guys seem to be getting away with coming in a little bit bigger. When you're 275 pounds, you can bring the fullness and the size. When you're a 5'6" man like Coach Greg, you have to come in shredded. And what I tell 95% of people when they say, what could I have done to look better? Could have been leaner. Almost always people would look better if they were a little bit harder. When you're truly shredded, truly peeled, perhaps one or two guys are on the stage in that kind of condition, you stand out like no one else. You are grainy, hard, and shredded. And that can make up for not having as much size. But imagine this, you have all the size and you get shredded. And so, what are the comments from last year? Derek Lunsford wasn't quite as lean as Hadi Sopan. Derek Lunsford has strided glutes, unbelievable. His chest looked a little soft. I trained with Derek a few days after the competition. He looked insane, insanity. The quads, the detail, how deep the cuts were. But that's a little off in most people's minds. And so how do you think you're gonna come in truly shredded, diced to the bone? You're gonna take diuretics. And so the majority of these guys, they start taking aldactone earlier in the week, and then they're going to take hydrochloroside with triamterene the night before the competition. Also, the morning of the competition. And those who are off a little bit too much, they'll oftentimes take Lasix or Biramex. They might even inject some Lasix in order to get ready for the evening competition from the morning show. Remember, you can make a big difference in one day. If you show up not quite in shape on day one, you have some time to lose some of that water for the evening show at the finals. And so with hydrochloroside and triamterene, that's one of the safer ones. Triamterene is a potassium-sparing diuretic, and it doesn't keep making you lose more and more weight. I've oftentimes taken 10 of those in a day. Not suggesting anyone to take 10 diuretics in a day. Obviously, never break the law. Only use these things with the advice and consent of your doctor. But for example, one works amazingly well. A half of one can even work. But if you take two, it doesn't make you lose twice the amount of water as taking one. If you go from 5 to 6 to 7 to 10, you don't really notice a big difference. But with Lasix, it keeps working and it keeps working and it keeps working. Very dangerous, and so please be careful, in particular with diuretics. Now, thing with steroids, if you took an entire bottle of testosterone, an entire bottle of Mastrone, Anavar, and so on, probably not going to end you. But if you swallow a whole bottle of diuretics, you get too dehydrated, it's not gonna be good. And come show day, oftentimes people are gonna actually take Cialis. You may have heard of this, tadalafil. This gives you an incredible pump. I'm not talking about a pump in the downstairs. Guys don't care about how their packages look. It's gonna be so dehydrated, it's gonna be half the size it normally would be. Think about when you go into cold water. This is how you're gonna look on show day. You're lucky if you can get any movement at all for several days before this competition. And remember, if you're looking to get harder than last time, you know what to take. Harder than last time from HGLT supplements. Now, of course, during the competition, everyone should be taking Turk Builder and GO2 Max, but these bodybuilders are on so many hardcore drugs that they don't realize that there are natural supplements that can literally help them to make a huge difference. A guy like Nick Walker, if he was on Turk Builder and GO2 Max, perhaps he would have had more focus, more drive, would have more endurance, and he wouldn't have had to drop out of the competition. You might think it's a joke, but I'm telling you, GO2 Max and Turk Builder for natural or enhanced, remember, I'm on HRT, I take these supplements, it makes a big difference. I suggest everyone to give it a try. Especially if you're natural, considering taking performance-enhancing drugs, perhaps this will be the thing you can take to stop you from going that route. And don't forget, code REG 15% off. Click the link in the description, and there is in fact a money-back guarantee. And so if you don't like it, you go and you get your money back. It's that simple. And so of course on show day, they're gonna be doing a lot of orals, for example, the Halo, Proviron, the Anavar, the Cialis. And if you're interested in Cialis or getting your blood work taken, remember, we're trying to be healthy. I've partnered with Transcend. They can take your blood work, analyze your blood work from doctors and tell you, are you being an idiot? Are you abusing steroids? They can tell you exactly how bad it is for you. And if you're not abusing steroids, you should get your blood work done anyway. Everyone should have a baseline blood work taken to see where they stand right now. And if anything changes in the future, you can look back and see what's going right, what's going wrong. And so if you're interested in getting your blood work taken by Transcend, or if you're interested in getting peptides and so on, speaking with medical professionals who can prescribe you quality products, click the link in the description. Following the competition, hopefully these people don't party harder than last time. This is not the time to do that. Please be careful. Don't overhydrate after the show. You can't be out drinking 10 liters of water, stuffing your face with 2 16-inch pizzas. This is a recipe for disaster. And after the show, please don't go crazy. Slowly regain the weight. You're now on a slow bulk. Don't go crazy with it. Gain the weight back to where it was, perhaps 10 or 12% body fat, and then maintain and repeat. Try not to abuse doses, and remember, you're taking years off your life. It's your choice. Ending it here. Subscribe, click the bell button, comment to boost the algorithm. Please like the video if you liked it. If you want more videos like this, I can do them again. It's all about the views. Remember, you have to watch it. If it doesn't get any views, I know it's not what you want to watch. Watch any of those 2 loops, and of course, the cookbooks, the training books, the coaching plans by me and my team. If you have no money, get the free diet and training program. Pick up the Harder Than Last Time clothing line, shirts like this, tank tops, hoodies, jogging pants, and so on. And until next time, I am out.